right. So this one is three things that goalies can teach their defense. All right. Uh, One of the things that I believe about the sport of lacrosse is that it's very difficult to coach. In some ways, I think it's easy to coach, but I also believe it's a very complicated game. Okay, it's a complicated game, and I think it rivals complexity. Like football is the most complex, but lacrosse has a lot of complexity to it, and that's hard. And so the reason why I share that is because sometimes we all know that the teams work usually from the offense back, and I like to go from the goalie out, and not selfishly, but the idea here is that I want to uh, when I work with goalies, sometimes what comes up in the conversation is that, oh, my coach never teaches that, or never teaches our team that. And there's a lot of that, and it just comes down to bandwidth, right? It comes down to knowledge of the coach. It comes down to like how many coaches they have and what they can articulate to their team. Like it's complex, right? And so some of the things that I work with goalies is like, what can you tell your defense that maybe their coach isn't telling them, right? And one of the mistakes that happens in lacrosse is that when it comes down to defense, is, I jokingly say that if you want better goalies, create better defensemen. Right. And what I mean by that is like if you take a defenseman, and you actually, and this goes true for the boys and the girls, if you can actually help teach them how to be really good athletically, and where to steer a defender and where not to steer them, and what shots matter and what shots don't, then we play differently. And so the first concept I wanted to share here is this idea that not every shot is the same. And one of the primary places like I see this happen is like on a fast break, boys and girls. Right? Like you see, and this happens in college lacrosse too. It just blows my mind. So fast breaks coming, and your point defender slides like super early, right? It's just all they've heard is fast break, and that point defender goes, and now they're sliding out to the ball carrier, and that ball carrier is at like 25 yards, sometimes 30 yards. And so then the offensive player of the ball throws, makes the pass. And now instead of a 4-on-3 from inside 15 yards, which is busy and there's traffic and it's easy to slide on, they slide early, and now it's a 3-on-2 from within inside 20. And that's hard. That ends up in a, 9 times out of 10, that ends up in a shot from within, a 1-on-0 on the goalie from inside 5 yards. We don't want that, right? We don't want that. So one of the things that I tell my goalies to do is like, every goalie hopefully has like one, maybe two defenders that they really like. And so after a goal goes in, one thing, if they've got some rapport there, they can say, hey, listen, I want you to, hey, listen, don't cover him. Don't cover him out there. Now, every goalie has their number, right? And I talked about this a bunch of months ago. We talked about how every goalie has their number. And one of the ways to communicate that with your D is by telling them how far away from the cage they are, right? So letting your defender know that, hey, listen, we're in a team sport here. If that guy's going to shoot from 18 yards, I want that shot. As a defender, you want to give up that shot because basically your goalie's going to save it. Now you have possession, and now we're going the other way. But what a lot of defense does is they treat a shot from 20 yards just like they treat a shot from inside 5 yards. And that's not correct, right? That's not good defense. That's not good coaching. And so a goalie can actually go to their defense and say, listen, you're too far. Back in, all right? Back in. Not every shot is the same. A shot like, shots from different shooters matter. So I just did a goalie audit. I was just on the phone with a goalie, and his team, he's got some smart defenders, and they realized that, hey, like, even though number 24 had had a pretty good stick, he wasn't as much of a threat as this other player on the team. So what they did was they prioritized playing against that kid versus number 24, because they felt that even if 24 got the ball, he was gonna hook it wide or do something weird with it. That's smart thinking, and that's communication from a goalie to a defense saying, hey, listen, I would rather have this shot than that shot. And so now what the defense does is they go, oh, okay, yeah, I don't have to run around as much if that's the deal. Like, if you want me to give up that shot, like, that's cool with me, right? I don't know a defender that wouldn't like to hear that. Okay, if they get to run less, I know all defenders are in. So the first thing a goalie can teach their defense is that, listen, not every shot's the same. We want that shot, right? The idea here is that I don't want my defense in a panic. I want them to realize that there's certain areas to increase the panic, and it's not like an off-on light switch. It's not like a panic button. It's more like one of those like dimmer switches, right? Right. As they get closer to the cage in certain areas, then we're airing it up a little bit. But even then, that leads me to the second thing that a goalie can teach their defense, which is, hey, we don't need the ball. Okay. This is something that I think is poorly taught by a lot of coaches. It's this concept that, hey, listen, all right, the other team, when they go to make a pass, there's some things that happen. One, it goes to a player who's less of a threat. Cool. It gets dropped. Also cool. It gets missed and thrown out of bounds. Very cool. Right. So the idea of a defender, men or women, on the ball carrier, the goal is not to try to put the ball on the ground. Now, that may be the case in the final minute of the game. You're down by one. You're trying to get to overtime, and you're trying to make that happen. But that takes some different coaching. That takes coaching where it's like, okay, you've taught your defense how to undress the ball carrier, like how to take the stick away and their shorts. Like, that's a different game. And the term that I always use a lot is, I teach defense. I'm like, I want surgeons, not lumberjacks. Right? Because what you end up seeing is you see defensemen who are just like whacking away for the boys, and the girls, the girls and the boys do the same thing here, but I call it like they're dancing with the offensive player. What I mean by that is the offensive player goes upfield, and then they cut back, and the defender's playing them evenly. They're trying to be on both sides. And I have some video clips that I'm going to cover here in a second, and I'll go through some of these examples. Okay. But the idea is, like, I don't want my defender dancing with the offensive player, because what happens is that the offensive player has the advantage there, and the defensive player will eventually get lost or crossed up, and then that offensive player runs right around him, and now we've got a slide, or it's a shot, or all that stuff. We don't need the ball, right? We don't need the ball. I don't want, when a defensive player is engaged with an offensive player, what I mean by that is that offensive player is driving towards the net, right? Is driving towards the cage from anywhere on the field. My defender's responsibility is to force that player wide. That's option one. If they're coming from like top left, top right, top center, I want to force them wide. I also want to communicate and force them to where we have more defenders if I can. All right. But the idea there is, I want to just have my defender turn them back. I want them to have that offensive player give up attacking the cage. I want to have them make a pass to a teammate, because they've stopped trying to get around this defender, because the defender's done a really good job, right? And then what can happen when they make that pass is that, yeah, the ball goes to a lesser player, it goes on the ground, it gets missed. All those things can happen. So if your defenseman does a good job at turning that player back, and they have to give that pass up, that defender should be rewarded, right? The coaches should be telling, like, Karen or Jimmy, hey, great job, right? You did a great job, right? Or if they make a play where they force that player, and this is kind of my next topic here about, playing top side and forcing them wide, or they make them miss, like, that's a big deal. Okay. And so the concept I want everybody, I want my goalies to teach their defense is like, listen, we don't need the ball. When you try to get the ball out of that player's stick, it's when you get beat, and then now it's a 1-0 on the goalie, right? We don't need that. Okay. Um, so the third topic that I want to cover here is make them miss. Okay. So a third thing that a goalie can teach their D is that, okay, listen, let's say you've played one up, and now that player has dodged around you, and you're running with that offensive player, and they go to shoot the ball. There's a couple things you can do in this situation. If you're on the ball carrier, right, we're teaching a rip, right? We're teaching, getting the stick head underneath the elbow of that offensive player and waiting. Being patient so that when that player goes to shoot the ball, that we're going to rub that elbow, that bottom side elbow, so that now that stick gets, the ball gets thrown off target. If that happens, right? If your defender does that, that defender should be rewarded. That's almost like you've just saved a shot on goal, right? As a goalie, I want to turn right back to my defender and go, great job, right? And I may even call that as a goalie, right? I want my defender to be patient, and then I'll yell rip, right? I'll yell rip. And so then my defender just goes, hey, listen, I'm still in the play. But what do we see defenders do who are poorly taught? They're whacking away, right? They're trying to whack and they get totally out of position. And that's not, it'd be the equivalent in basketball of reaching in, right? Like, goalie or a defenseman tries to reach in. And then when you reach in and you lunge forward, that's when you get beat. So I want to teach my defense to those three things. Not every shot's the same. We don't need the ball, and then make a miss. And the other thing, that if your defender is sliding, I see a lot of times defenders will slide and they try to put their stick head in front. They try to disrupt the shot, like they try to stop the ball. No, teach your defense how to get the head of their stick on the cuff of the bottom hand of the shooter, right? If you can lead through with a poke check, right, and you follow through and you get that guy, if you skewer them in the chest, then, the ref rarely calls that, right? But the idea here is that if you get a poke check into the cuff of that bottom hand, you're going to make that shooter miss. And that's really, really good. That's a really, really good deal. Bob Nunn writes, lift check way better than a slap check. I don't teach that. Rather push on hips than big check. Yep, exactly. All right, really good stuff. So I've got some video here. I'm going to try to show this if we can. This is also that outlet pass. Okay, so we'll play that through. See if I can show some things here. And all right, this is okay. So this is a good one. This will come through. Pardon the footage on this. Is a little fuzzy, but come on. Okay, so here's a good play. All right, so midfielder is dodging from top center, top left, like kind of on that line. And the midfielder, what happens here defensively is that as this midi goes, if you watch the defender in white start to cross over, so now the defender crosses over, and at this point, the offensive player has the advantage. Okay, now they run through a pick, and that defender now is running full speed. You guys have all heard the term speed kills. That's not true. Deceleration kills. Okay. Deceleration kills. So whoever has the ability to stop the quickest, and the offensive player has the advantage because they know when they're going to try to stop, right? Like that's the deal. So what happens in this particular play is the offensive player puts in the brakes, and that long pole runs right by him and actually falls over. Okay. Now, what should a defender do in this situation? What I would teach here is, again, we don't need the ball. I don't need you to try to stop this shot. If he takes the shot, I'm not trying to, do the job of my goalie, right? I need the defender to do their job. And so what I want this defender to do is stay on the back of this offensive player. And so we leave the stick literally on the backside of this player, and the right hand is on like the hips, or the hips are best. But if that offensive player stops, that defensive player is actually using their hand to slow themselves down, right? Instead, this offensive player goes running right by, tries to make this massive check. These never work, right? Massive slap checks never work, right? And there he goes. Guy turns, midi turns, rips it right on the goalie, right? Right 5-hole. Okay. So this didn't need to happen. This didn't need to happen. Okay. All right. So I'm going to fast forward through this. All right. Moving to the next one. This was an interesting one. Okay. So this was so Chris Hogan. This is from the PLL. Chris Hogan is a professional football player who also played college lacrosse. So famously, he played college lacrosse, and then he got drafted in the NFL. And he went to the Patriots, and he won. I can't remember how many Super Bowls he won with the Patriots. He was a wide receiver. Was he a wide receiver? I think he was a receiver. Yeah, but great player. Then got traded, and now his football career is kind of done. Goes back to lacrosse, plays the PLL. Right, tremendous athlete. So he's going up against Matt Rambo, who very famously scored the game winner in the first PLL championship in overtime. All right, on an off-stick hip shot that should have been saved with the glove of the goalie, but no. All right, so just watch him play, okay? So he's that arrow in the back. So he never throws a check here. He's watching the offensive player's hips, and he's staying low. Now here, at this point, he's coming to goal line. So as a goalie, I'm saying, hey, Chris, you're good, you're good. And right about here, I'm saying, Chris, you're pipe. Now Chris knows he's above goal line. But what does he do? He just stays patient on the backside of the player, of Matt Rambo here, and he just rides him. He just rides him. And Matt Rambo tries to get basically a poor shot off right at the goal line. Okay. And it's a poor percentage shot that ends up going wide. And it all happens because he's just nice and patient, doesn't try to throw a check. Because if he tries to throw a check here, he probably gets beat clean, and Rambo comes across really unprotected with a much better scoring option. So this is a great example of where the D, it's just like, all right, listen, man, like, you're good, stay in position. We don't need the ball, just ride him out, and we'll make stuff happen behind you. Right? Really, really good. And what's cool is that defensively, they know they don't really have to slide much. Okay, that's really cool too. Okay, so now this one, what was this play? All right, here we go. So this is Yale, I believe. Yeah, this is Yale on defense, Duke's on offense. One thing, like, I'm a little old school. One thing I teach my defense is I want them to have their stick topside, right? Topside. Back in like the 90s, defense would switch hands. If a player came, side left, they would go with their stick in their right hand. Defense would go with stick in the right hand. If they would, if he came side right, the defender would put their stick in their left hand. So I like my defender to have their stick topside. Okay. Because it's kind of like they're funneling the player where they want. It's like a gate in top. It's a little bit of an anchor for the defenseman too. They can play topside. It can help kind of pull them topside a little bit. But what I love about this defender, so he's got this attackman in a V hold, right? And he's going to, he's just going to be patient here. And I love it. Right. So there's great positioning by this defender. Right. So he stays there. He leaves the stick topside. He doesn't try to do too much. Now, right here, this is perfect in my opinion. Like, I love this. The defender is topside. And this is where this works in the girls' game too. But I see a lot of girls kind of they rush to be now on the bottom side of the attackman, and then they get into trouble. Okay. So here, the defender just stays right there and pushes him to goal line. A player cannot score behind goal line. Now, don't give me some wise ass answer and say that's not true. He can come around. Have you seen Lyle Thompson? No, that's not my point. Okay, it's not my point. So save it. All right. I'm not interested in your jabber. But so the defender just keeps him there, drives in the goal line, and now he gives up. The attackman now gives up. He has to now turn around again. Now he takes another shot at the defender. Defender goes, "No, I got you in the V." And now what the defender does here, he gets the stick on. He pulls the stick up, right? He goes for a check if he's got it. Now there's a little minuscule space here. So the idea is that your defender, if they're talented enough, can throw a check if there's a little bit of a gap, but we don't want them doing that and getting themselves in trouble. But this defender knows what the hell they're doing, and they're still in really good position. Okay, so this is good. And now there's a slide coming, and now he's toast, right? He's toast. And so that's fantastic D. That's fantastic D. All right. So I want to reward that. I want to reward that defender for that good play. Okay. So that's really, really important. Okay. So this one, hold up. I got to get through to this. There's a little clip coming up in the lower left-hand corner. Pardon me. Hopefully you guys can see it. So this is a great play here because the offensive player is running kind of away from the net. So this defender now they can go for a check. Now they're going to be surgeon. And what he does is he runs with them. He sees the opening. Right here, he throws the poke check, right? And he just skewers the guy. Boink. Right? And this is a great little defensive play, but it's safe. This player is like back left. He's far away from the cage. He's not a threat. And it's all good news. Sorry, I fast forwarded there. All right. So here, this is a perfect example of kind of what not to do. Okay. So in this game right here, the defender goes for a poke check and gets this kid square in the head. Right. So square in the head here, right there. Right. Now this player is like 25 yards away from the goal. Complete waste. And there was no flag. It was kind of weird. They thought they were going to get flags. So they paused. But now this player drives the cage. So now 15 is like now again out of position. Now he's running. But across the way here, I'll just play this through. Watch 15 make all these try to make all these checks here. Right? Slap, 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 slap again. Slap. Oh, now I'm all twisted. And now it's in the cage. Completely unnecessary. All right. This defender needs to know, hey, we don't need the ball out there. Right? We don't need the ball out there. Now get your stick on the backside of this defender and just ride him. Ride him. Now here, this is great. Slide comes, and then now you get a chance to double team, but they're still going for checks. And these guys have never been taught how to do this. Alex Rode in the final, when he went out to double team a ball, and you could just see even for Virginia, they haven't truly taught how to double team with a goalie and a long pole. Drives me nuts, right? So it's just completely unnecessary. And this guy just runs right through everybody. 15 is like swinging around like a lumberjack cutting all sorts of trees, and the ball goes in the cage. Okay. One last one here. Hang on. Let me just see if I can fast forward this here. Oh, this is all right. So this is Lyle Thompson. I'll just play this through once. Okay. Defender here plays him too far topside and gets beat. All right. Very beat. Very, very beat. Okay. All right. And so now he comes in. Now, with a player like Lyle Thompson, who's a tremendous box player, he's going to get shots off at really odd angles. And so as the goalie, I think this is Dylan Ward, goalie gets totally caught unprepared. But it all starts back here with the defender going, all right, listen, Lyle Thompson is not known really to rip the ball from 15 yards, right? So if as a defender, I want my defender to back in. Like, we don't need, like, if he's going to rip it from there, I got Dylan Ward in the cage. Give me that shot. Like, it's a good deal, right? But instead, the defender plays too far, right? Too risky. Like, and the defender, if you look here, watch, the defender looks to see the picks coming, and right there, Thompson's like, see ya, boink, I'm out of here. None of that needed to happen. None of that needed to happen. And then he puts it right in the armpit of Dylan Ward, which bugs me because that to me is a goalie that isn't ready to absorb a shot with his upper bicep. And even, yes, it is Dylan Ward. Yeah, I just think that could have been better. All right. That just drove me nuts. Okay. Do I have any more? I don't have any more. Any questions on those guys? Oh, this last clip I wanted to show you is this one. Okay. So this isn't actually a shot, but this is actually a rub. All right. So so defenders there on the top, there's a pick, 10 runs through the pick, 10 runs through the pick. And then right here, he's just looking for that elbow. He's looking for the elbow of the offensive player. And because he gets up under that elbow, by the time that player goes to pass the ball, he's all discombobulated. Yes, that's a word. And he makes a bad pass and they come away with a ground ball, right? All because of this little rub, right? All because of that little rub, right? So I just want you to just be better. Teach your defense what you need to have happen and don't let them, overcommit. Like, realize this is a team game, right? We want certain shots. We don't want other shots. And I'll tell you, man, I believe that as we change the game, as we change the goalie position, and we do the things that I'm getting you guys to kind of implement, is that the entire game changes. Defenses change. Offenses have to change, right? All because we have better goalies that are protected and they're communicating with their defensemen, and good stuff's going to happen. All right. So, So keep that in mind. All right, guys, thanks for watching and thanks for listening wherever you are. Do me a favor, hit the like button if you like this, and be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. When you're ready, head on over to lacrossegoalieuniversity.com/coaching so I can work with you and your goalie. And while you're at it, check out athletespecific.com to learn more about mental performance and high performance. You may not know this, but I work with athletes in a variety of sports. Lacrosse is my love, but man, I love athletes and the families who support them. So head on over to athletespecific.com, check it out. I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.